Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, Meridia journeys far beyond the walls of the new city for a secret rendezvous with Val, finding herself outmaneuvered yet again by the man who calls himself the Iron Wolf. But Meridia has a few tricks up her sleeve and has no plan of letting Val keep the upper hand for long. Find out what happens next on the Seventh Valkyrie. Arms crossed in the dying light with a wry smile on his face. "You move well in the forest," Meridia said. "Fuck. I've seen woodstalkers with less grace." "That comes from a lifetime of hunting," he said, "and more than a decade trying to outwit Gorchin wolfhounds." "You talking about those two dogs you had with you?" Meridia said. "Where are you hiding them? At your camp?" The false wolf whistled, and there was a rustling from behind Meridia as the two wolfhounds emerged as well, both from the greenery on the other side of the small spring. Meridia shook her head, cursing under her breath. "How long were you watching me?" she asked. "Long enough to see you arrive," he said. "As a friendly tip, it's usually a better idea to conceal your presence before you walk out into the open at a meeting spot. It makes the hiding a bit more effective." "You told me you wouldn't be here before last light." "I said I'd meet you at last light," he said. "I didn't say anything about when I'd arrive. We are still learning to trust each other." The hounds had made their way cautiously past her on either side of the spring, then turned and sat at the false wolf's feet, eyes never leaving Meridia. "They're in even less of a good mood than you are," she said. "Well, they don't really like you. Our last meeting, well, didn't end on friendly terms, if you remember." "And what, you're telling me that those dogs hold grudges?" "Of course. If I had to guess, Rowan would attack if I gave the word, and Etta wouldn't really need that much encouragement. She can be a little vengeful at times." Meridia crossed her arms. "So what, I should just be sitting here worried that they'll attack me at any moment?" "Of course not," the wolf said, stepping forward and whistling for them with a gesture. "Wolfhounds fight and then get over it all the time. We show we're friends, and they'll treat you like it." "We are not friends," Meridia said, stopping the false wolf where he stood. "At best, you're a criminal and a deserter working towards similar goals to me. I've worked with scum before." The false wolf snorted, but he didn't move forward. "All right then, associate. What information do you have for me?" "Well, we have confirmation of attacks like Min's all across Edera," she said, "which is one of the only reasons I'm not here with a battalion of men to bring you in. Word hasn't come in from Sunseton in over a week, and people are starting to get worried. If this didn't smell like Krona from a mile away..." "You've chased him before," he said. "Did you learn anything?" "No. Well, nothing that would give us any shortcuts. He never, ever uses the same trick twice. You have to try to unravel him before he gets his web set up, otherwise you're just caught dancing in it." "And has he set up his web in Reen?" "I don't think so, but he's trying, and it's in process. I've started putting the pieces together, but there's a lot missing. Whatever the Machine King is trying to hide, it doesn't show up on my documents. But you can find a pretty damn good outline of what's hidden by what's not there at all." "Tell me more," the false wolf asked. "Well, whatever it is, there's something tied to the Mandarians who've come in and this new plan for the barges and the bridge," Meridia explained. "It's a massive, expensive project with tons of manpower. You can hide a lot around the margins of something like that." The false wolf nodded. "I'd say that's a good start." We track down what's missing, and we find the fingerprints of the Machine King and his allies here. Meridia nodded, reaching into her weight vest and pulling out the list. I've got this information. Different organizations who had manifests altered, missing, or suspiciously unbalanced. I need you to break into these organizations and find the matching documents, because the real ones will be kept somewhere. Now, they'll be guarded, and what we do we'll need to do quietly and without any possible trace. Give Krona's men one hint, one inkling that you're onto them, and they'll go underground and disappear. It's risky, and I'd find a different way to do this, but apart from leaving the city, I'm being watched everywhere I go. You leave the break-ins to me, he said. I'll get you what you need. I don't think you're really listening, she said. And if you do, you don't possibly appreciate what I'm saying. I have been tracking the Machine King for years, and he's smarter, more clever than you could possibly imagine. His people aren't half bad either. You move one document to where it shouldn't be, take one set of files without returning it, and they'll know. Okay. So what do you want me to do? Despite her outburst, he looked intrigued. You take these addresses, and you figure out how to get to them and get into them. Every day when I leave for my evening drink a bit after sunset, Wells, that fucking watchdog from Yosen, is going to follow me. You come in, you find the third from the bottom folder on the stack, and it will have the manifests for a company. You get into the place, you find the real manifests, and you fill out this information on the extra sheets I've given you. Then, you return the originals to the exact same spot you found them, and you leave the copies on my desk, exact same place, before morning. If you're seen, you attack anyone you can find, and you steal something to make it look like a break-in, but we have at best one of those, maybe, before Krona's operation shifts and we're totally lost. The false wolf looked at her thoughtfully, nodding. You really have been hunting him, he said. Of course I have. Before I was selected for the Light Corps, I was military police in Mandus, and he's a huge threat to Edera. He has an even stronger presence there than he does here, and... Fuck. The false wolf nodded. I have a question. Can you handle getting me 2 sets of manifests each time? He said. The nights are getting long. We've got a lot of hours. Are you joking? Meridia asked. Do I sound like I'm joking? The false wolf answered, tone completely even. I just told you you're going to need to break into the new city, sneak undetected into highly guarded organizations, and search each place for their information, all perfectly without giving yourself away. And you are telling me the only question you have is whether or not I can give you 2 manifests per evening? Yes, that is what I said. I have trusted you to point me at the right places. Trust me to get the job done. I've already surveyed damn near every notable building in the city. This is just picking one. The guard presence is strong on some of them, I'll admit, but without X's, they won't be much trouble to get through. You forget how easy it is to get around an Edoran town as a pure-blooded Edoran with some confidence. And what if they have X's? Meridia asked. I've seen thwarps who look just like any other Edoran. What if they're on guard? Then I kill them and write thwarp in blood on the ground, he said. That still happens here, doesn't it? To real thwarps and to fake ones? Meridia grimaced, meeting his eyes, and then nodded. I thought so. Some things don't change. The wind rose through the clearing, sending the stretching, grasping shadows of the trees across the two of them, and then as soon as it had come, the breeze died, fading away into a gentle whisper. By now, the moon was starting to climb in the sky, offering the only light by which they could see. Well, why don't you give me that list and get back, he said. You've both got a lot to do. Meridia scanned him up and down. I'm going to repeat this. You do know that any slip-up and they go underground, right? And worse, they may find out who's looking, and they will come for you. His eyes glinted in the moonlight. There, don't go tempting me with shortcuts, he said. He stepped forward until he was only a foot away from her, and Meridia was reminded once again that standing next to the false wolf was one of the few times in which anyone could describe her as small. Folding up the paper, she held it out for him. Just make sure that she started, and then grabbed his right wrist with her left and pulled, using the leverage to step forward, striking into his gut and feeling him grunt in response. She had already rebounded and turned the backswing of the punch into a full-body spin, pirouetting in the dirt, dropping low, and sweeping his legs out from under him with a heel kick to the side of his legs. As he fell straight back, he cursed in some language she didn't recognize, but she didn't care, and instead shifted to the side, drawing her knife in a single movement as she finished her spin and stepping forward to stand over him. But rather than falling to the ground, he coiled up like a spring as he landed, kipped back onto his feet into a crouch, and stepped forward, hooking her under both armpits as he exploded forward all in one movement. He took 2 steps and tackled her into the trunk of a massive tree behind her, and Meridia gasped both at the sudden burst of speed and her sudden lack of oxygen. She brought her knife down on his shoulder, or, well, where his shoulder had been. On impact, he had flowed around the back of the tree trunk, and as she stabbed down, he caught her under the arms again and wrenched her shoulders back against the tree, hooking her other underarm so that he held her in a modified full Nelson with the tree between them. Gasping again and working on instinct now, Meridia flipped her knife around and drove it back towards the tree, aiming for where his arms were locked, but again she came up short. He slid his arms up hers, grabbing her under the wrists and wrenching back, pinning her against the tree with both of her arms captured, arms fully extended, and the stump between them. She grasped and kicked against the tree, tried to flip up, but he had her pinned. Want to know what happens next? Join us on Patreon to become a hero of Edera and get early access to episodes along with bonus features, director's commentary, and the full Tab to archive. You can also find other ways to support us at the links in the description, and we will see you next week.